So good evening, everybody. Welcome to this important event. We're glad you're here to witness this history, this important primary debate for District 13 in Pinellas County. And thanks to Jennifer and the county party for inviting me to do this. I'm Rob Lori, the host of WEDU TV's Florida This Week. And we've got about 90 minutes to hear from the candidates. So we're asking people to please hold any applause that you might have until after the candidate is finished answering your question. I once moderated a Republican debate when I noticed a lot of people wearing gold bracelets and pearls and nice necklaces. And in that case, I told them just rattle their jewelry to show their free. But I don't think there's enough jewelry in this room. We know you've seen the program with each candidate's bio, but we're going to start with 1 minute opening statements so the candidates can tell us a little bit more about themselves, their professional background, their families, and their connection to the district. And then we'll move on to the questions. In that round, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. Each candidate will get a chance to answer every question. We expect a respectful debate. If a candidate attacks another candidate, I'll give the attacked candidate 30 seconds to respond. At the end, we'll have 2-minute closing statements from all the candidates. Alex and Aiden, who are here in the front row, are our timekeepers tonight. Thank you both for doing this. You'll see a 30-second sign go up when you have 30 seconds left, and you'll see a stop sign go up when you're out of time. I'll let you finish your thought, but please don't go beyond that. We'll start alphabetically with Sabrina Busbar speaking first. The next question after that, we'll start with Liz Dagan. And at the end, we'll have our candidates give a 2-minute closing statement. That round, we'll start with Mark Weinkrantz and then Whitney Fox, and then we'll go down the line. So Sabrina, give us a little bit more than what we got in this program about yourself, your background, your family, and your experience.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Sabrina Busbar. I was born and raised in Pinellas County, Florida. My mother is from Colombia and my father is from Morocco. And from a young age, my parents taught me the beauty of this country and the importance of standing up for what you believe in and showing up for your community. I am a public servant, preparedness and recovery expert, and an organizer who has seen what's possible when we come together to get things done. President Biden gave his trust in me to help our country recover from the mass shootings, natural disasters, and the pandemic. I am running for Congress because we deserve to live in healthy and safer communities. I am proud to be endorsed by labor, environmental groups, and other trusted leaders who want more diverse young leaders serving us in Congress. While Ana Paulina Luna continues to put her extreme ideologies above the people she's supposed to serve, I will always put the people first.
Okay, thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Liz Dahan and it is an honor to be here with you. I'm coming to this race with over 20 years of experience in the public and private sector. I have been in the room and I have advised CEOs and government leaders, and when I've been in the room when they've made big decisions. I've turned no's into yeses during countless high-stakes negotiations, and I have real life experience addressing issues that are of top of mind to all of us. The economy, healthcare, women's rights, the environment, democracy. Pinellas County deserves a representative who has serious experience because these are serious times. Choose me to be your representative as the Democratic representative, and I will win in November. And I will deliver for the people of Pinellas County because I deliver. That's what I do. Let me deliver for you. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Whitney Fox. I was born and raised right here in Tampa Bay. My mother is actually the first nurse who worked at Moffitt Cancer Center and still works there today. My father's a small business owner in Clearwater, and my in-laws just moved down the street from me in St. Petersburg, where my husband and I are raising 2 little girls. Florida is and always has been my home, which is why I've spent my career working for the people here in Pinellas County. most recently at Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority, and prior to that at Visit St. Pete Clearwater. I have the experience of working with our local, state, and federal government, both Democrats and Republicans, to get things done for the people here in Pinellas. But what lit a fire to run for office in me was having a baby. The medical bills, the lack of paid parental leave, the lack of affordable childcare. I couldn't believe that this is how we start American families. And the fact that my two little girls are now growing up with fewer rights than I did, I decided I had to stand up and do something about it. Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks everybody for coming out this evening. It's an honor to be here up on the stage with these other individuals. And I appreciate the way that the attention is focusing on what's going on. Going off script here a little bit. Donald Trump may have been shot or not shot. This is a democracy. You know, I'm sorry, it's not funny. I'm sorry. This is a democracy. And we can't go ahead and celebrate violence in the politics here. That is not who we got to be. We have to be better than that. So I ask you, I'm using up all my time, but I've asked you before to trust me any number of times, and I'm asking you now. I'm the only veteran out here. I'm the only one that's held elected office in this community. I'm the only one that's been in this community for 35 years, serving this community from the ground up. I've been in the trenches, I'm battle scarred, but I'm still here fighting for, of course, the most vulnerable and for every citizen's right in this community to be heard. Thank you so much for coming in.
We're going to do something really quick right now. It's 5 questions. It's going to be raise your hand if you agree. I'm going to ask all 4 of you to raise your hand at the same time. 1, do you support continued U.S. military backing for Ukraine? Okay. 2, would you expand solar energy programs if you went to Congress? Okay. 3, do you support Medicare for all?
It's not a switch. You can't throw it overnight.
Okay. Do you oppose Project 2025? And would you work together with Republican congressmen and women for causes you believe in if given the chance? Okay. Thank you. Let's start our first round of longer questions. One. Liz Dan, we're going to start with you. Should President Biden continue as the party's standard bearer? Why or why not? And if he's replaced, by what method will you make sure that the new candidate gets on the ballot in all 50 states?
So I used to work on Capitol Hill with Tom Daschle, and I know Joe Biden. I've known Joe Biden since 2004, and he has been an incredible leader, a public servant, and president. He has delivered for America the bipartisan infrastructure law, which gives us stronger roads, better ports, everything. He was able to advance the Inflation Reduction Act, which lowered prescription drugs and also was the largest investment in clean energy in history. And he has also got the PACT Act through, despite the fact that Anna Paulina Luna voted against it, which gave our Afghan and Iraqi veterans friends the health care that they deserve and need. This is because he knows how to navigate the Congress, and he can get things done even in the face of real challenge. And so I support Joe Biden as our president, but I will also support whatever Democratic nominee comes forward, and I support Biden and Harris. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I think that we can all agree that the recent debate had some highs and some lows, but I can tell you one thing, Anna Paulina Luna would love nothing more for us to be talking about whether or not Biden should be. I'm here to point out the fact that Anna Paulina Luna is a complete failure as a representative and not addressing the issues that I came here tonight to talk about. Affordability crisis, of course, our rising cost of insurance, protecting reproductive rights. There are many issues that we should be focused on, and the more we spend time talking about this and less time talking about how awful it is, they are winning. So Absolutely. This is the most flippable congressional seat in the state of Florida. We've got to get our house in order, and we can win this seat and defeat Anna Paulina Luna this November. Thank you. I'm here to talk about Anna Paulina Luna, and we'll support whoever the nominee is.
No comment? Okay. Mark?
I'll answer the question. I'm with Joe. Very simple. This is the way it is. He is the leader of the party. 14 million Americans have voted in the primaries to put him where he is. And as an elected official, I've seen people come up with all kinds of proposals on how we should fix things. Let's do this. Cut my taxes. Change the way that you dress. Do whatever it takes. But they don't offer solutions. So it's great. We're Democrats. Go ahead. Make all the noise you want in terms of asking for change, but propose something that works. In the meantime, I'm going to agree with Liz. Joe has done incredible things. He's getting the people together for Ukraine, getting a confederacy of people together to go ahead and fight Putin. When we know if Biden's not reelected and Trump comes back and actually wins, all those people are at risk. The PAC Act, the Infrastructure Act, any number of things that Joe has accomplished, I'm on board for. Is he old? Yes. Does he make mistakes? Joe has always made mistakes. That's part of his charm. But down in his soul, he is a good man, he's a solid man, and he has represented and put his life on the line every day in this country to serve his fellow Americans. And nobody knows how to deal with grief better than Joe Biden. Nobody can empathize more with the people that are suffering in this country. So yeah, I'm on with Joe. I'll answer the questions.
I was one of the first field organizers hired for President Biden in the primary, and I was honored to get President Biden elected in 2020. I was honored to serve in his administration and get all of these amazing accomplishments that we're talking about. President Biden passed the bipartisan infrastructure law, which rebuilt and upgraded our infrastructure across the nation. President Biden got the American Rescue Plan through the door, which helped us respond to the global health pandemic, but provide economic relief as well. President Biden got the CHIPS and Science Act through the door, which brought manufacturing jobs to the United States and allowed technologies to be made in the USA. President Biden addressed the gun violence epidemic that we are in by passing the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, and the list goes on. President Biden has delivered for the American people, and he needs to finish the job. I 100% support President Biden. I 100% believe that as Democrats, we need to unite. We are wasting time because the real threat here is democracy at stake this November. The real threat here are extremists, Donald Trump and Anna Paulina Luna. And what I would like to do is ask for President Donald Trump to get out of the race and not be a part of the nominee because he's a literal convicted felon.
So Whitney, I was going to get to that question. Okay, so Whitney, tell us why Anna Paulina Luna, the current person in the job, should be replaced. Why are you the best person to do it? And how would you win the seat, given the GOP's voter registration advantage in the district?
Has anyone here heard of Anna Paulina Luna before? Yeah. So I think we're all familiar with how extreme she is. She's too extreme for Pinellas County. She's too extreme for her own party at the moment. She supports a national abortion ban. She went as far as saying, if you don't like the 6-week ban, then leave, when the majority of her constituents are not a fan of the 6-week ban. She is doing nothing to address the issues that are important here in the district and just busy causing chaos in DC. Why am I the best candidate to go up against her? Well, there are many reasons. Number one, born and raised here in the area. And not only that, I've been working here in the district with our local, state, and federal government, with Democrats and Republicans. I have the relationships and the record, and the only one with experience with working with our local electeds to get things done here in Pinellas County. Not only that, but I've got the support. It takes a lot to run for Congress. And not only, it's great to have experience working for someone in DC. I've worked with people in DC. And that's why I am the one here on stage who's endorsed by not just one, but 7 members of sitting Congress members. Kathy Castor, Debbie Mucarsel-Powell, who's running for Senate and will be our next senator, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, many others, and Lois Frankel, of course. But not only that, but the local electeds here in the district, from city council members, school board members, they've all supported me. We need to build an army to go up against Anna Paulina Luna this November, and I'm already starting to build that army, and that's how we're going to win. Thank you.
Thank you.
88,000. That's a big number. That's how many veterans there are in Pinellas County. Show of hands on the stage, who else is a veteran? Thank you. Thank you for your service. Does it matter to veterans if they're voting for another veteran? You bet it does. Because only a veteran knows what it's like to get that phone call and being told to pack your stuff and be on base in 2 hours. Not knowing if they're going away for a night, a week, or if they're ever coming home. That's the commitment that veterans bring to this community. 88,000 of them that will look at the ballot and say, is this candidate a veteran? Do they share my values? Have they shared my experience? That's just the tip of the iceberg. To say that I haven't worked with the locals here is kind of a ridiculous statement, because I've led in this community. When I was elected up in Eastlake, we helped put together the county-wide emergency management program. We led with redoing things like the administration of Penny for Pinellas money that's helped not only us, but cities like Dunedin, Palm Harbor, Oldsmar, and the list goes on and on. As far as support, I love the people that I have that endorse me. They're here in the room tonight because they are committed to this community for decades. They have built this community, they've educated in this community, and they're invested enough to the point that they don't want to see their Florida, the place that they love, go down the drain. I have stood up before, I have gone ahead and demonstrated that I will fight the fights, and I'd like the opportunity to fight this one. Thank you.
You know, I want to say something real quick. No matter who the nominee is, we are all going to unite to defeat Anna Paulina Luna. That is elected officials, that is the candidates, that is the Democratic Party. We will unite because she is the main threat. Now, the reason why I believe I am the best candidate, I am the only candidate born and raised in this district. Let me make sure that's clear. In this district, I am the only candidate who has worked with the current federal government, and we have lots of issues going on in DC. I didn't just work for, I worked with. I worked with the Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response, where I was on the ground across the nation, helping our communities recover from mass shootings, from fires, from hurricanes, you name it. I have been there in times of crisis. And what we have in DC right now is a crisis. We are in a multifaceted crisis in this country. I can list off all of the issues that are happening that matter to so many voters in this district that are a variety of issues. And what we need is a crisis manager who can go into DC, tell them how to get things done, and actually get to work for every single person, because that's what we need in Congress. Thank you.
So last month, the Supreme Court made a couple of really big decisions. I'm not going to talk about the imperial presidency. What I want to talk to you about is the Chevron doctrine. For 40 years, Chevron was used by agency experts to interpret laws when writing complex regulations. Big business targeted Chevron as a shortcut to water down environmental laws, consumer protections, fair labor standards, and other common sense guardrails. By doing this, they made the job of Congress that much more important. Legal experts say that as a result of this decision, Congress will need to write more detailed and specific legislation. I said it before. We need someone in Congress who is serious, who has serious experience, who understands the issues that are facing this country. I have worked with business, I have worked with government, and I know how to get things done. Anna Paulina Luna has not done anything for this district. She has not done anything for Americans. We need a leader who knows how to do this, and that's me. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's start with Mark in this next round. Our governor says that the abortion rights amendment that is on the ballot this November would allow women to have an abortion right up until birth and even post-birth. I'm quoting from Gus. Tell us what you think of the governor's position. Tell us what you would do in Congress when it comes to abortion.
Well, we all know, and this is where you're not going to see any real distance between any of us on the stage. This is boilerplate stuff. We need to codify Roe v. Wade. It just needs to happen. And as far as, all the theater and drama that they put on from the other side, the late term abortions, they don't happen. They don't exist. I've looked at the last year, I saw the figures for, there were like 6 abortions the last trimester because it was critical for the mother's health of the child. It was not going to happen. It was last minute stuff. But I think about this stuff and I think, how can a doctor do his job here? He took an oath to go ahead and save lives. It's kind of like when I was flying, if I had to go ahead and there's a mountain ahead of me and I have 400 people strapped to me and they have to say, wait, do I go left or right? Let me call DeSantis and find out which way he tells me to go. There's no pause button in the air. There's no pause button in the emergency room when someone you love is there and at risk of losing their life because of politics. And you know who's leaving the state? Because when Luna said, if you don't like the rules, just leave. Black people can uproot their lives, their families, their employment, their homes, and everything else. The people that are leaving are the doctors because they're not allowed to do their job. And who does that hurt? It hurts everyone in here that has someone they love. The father of a daughter, the husband of a wife, the mothers, the children, and everyone else. And we need to fight for that because that's what we do as Democrats. We fight for everybody, and the value of life is embracing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Politicians do not belong in the doctor's office. As a young woman, when Roe v. Wade was overturned and states started putting forward these abortion bans, I got scared. I got scared about having a family someday. I got scared about my little sister who's going to go to college soon. And I got scared for the many women who are going to suffer from this. Young women, minority women, low-income women, so many more. And what we have to do is restore Roe v. Wade and protect women's health care on top of it. Because it's not just Roe v. Wade that's the issue. It is our reproductive rights. It is our health care that is a problem. And instead, Anna Paulina Luna wants a national abortion ban. She wants to hurt families from planning by cutting IVF. She also wants to criminalize access to contraception. This is extreme. And what we also need to do when I'm elected is not just fight for women's rights and reproductive rights, but also fight for Florida and make sure that whoever the Republican nominee is for governor does not win.
So, many of you know I worked for many years with Madeleine Albright, and she had a saying that there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. And I think about that a lot when I think about this situation that we're facing with this conversation around Roe, around IVF, around contraception. And as your representative, I will fight for women's rights every day. I was thinking about the story that I saw about the Lakeland woman who was forced to carry her baby to term, even though she knew after 20 weeks that it was no longer viable. I'm thinking about the Indiana doctor who ended up getting punished because he performed an abortion on a 10-year-old girl who had been raped. These policies are very scary. And we talked about Project 2025. And I think it's really important that we think, if you read what they have planned for women, it's really scary. We need people who can stand up to these legislators, these extremists, and bring rationality and pragmatic thinking back to Congress. We can't be having these religious zealots driving our lives, because that's what's happening. And that's what I'll be doing, is standing up to that.
As I mentioned earlier, my 2 little girls are currently growing up with fewer rights than I did. Doctors are leaving our state. Women will die. We must protect our reproductive freedoms nationwide, period. I'm reminded of Anya Cook, who here in Florida had her water break 5 months early, which no fetus would survive that. The doctors in the emergency room wouldn't treat her. So you know where she went? The hair salon to get her hair done, because she didn't want to bother her parents to do it, because she thought she was going to die and need it done for her funeral. These are drastic times that we're living in. I'm thinking of my own experiences and my pregnancies, being in the ultrasound room, hoping and praying that everything's going okay. I can't imagine being told everything's not okay and there's nothing we can do about it. This isn't pro-life. This is forced birth. This is forced birth with high medical bills, get back to work, and your paycheck barely covering childcare. What are we doing? We do not need politicians to tell us what we can and cannot do with our bodies. And that is why you will see women and men who support them showing up to vote this November. We will pass Amendment 4. We will get Anna Paulina Luna out of Congress, and we will codify Roe and restore our reproductive freedom.
Sabrina Bushbar, this next question is for you. Donald Trump said in a rally this week that no one eats bacon anymore because it's too expensive. He says the Biden economy is a disaster. Yet we have historically low unemployment. About 5 million new jobs are created every year. Inflation has subsided, and Biden gets almost no credit. What's wrong with the Democrats' message on the economy, and how would you improve it?
Well, I love that question. Oh my gosh. Well, I thought it was hilarious for those who watched the debate that, Donald Trump tried to go against Joe Biden about mis and disinformation. We all know that Donald Trump is the king of mis and disinformation. He literally created an app called Truth Social so that he wouldn't get fact checked. But what we need to do is, as Democrats, we need to work on our messaging, and we need it to be sharp and concise. We need to say, all right, so you might not feel that you can't afford your groceries, but have you seen that you have better job opportunities? Yes, I do. Have you seen the student debt relief that came to your pockets? It was one person could get over $100,000 relief from their pockets because they're a low-income community and they just wanted to get a higher education degree so that they can have a better future. So what we need to do as Democrats is ensure that we are messaging on these points of success that have been happening with the Biden-Harris administration, and they're working on it. It's called Building Back Better. It's called Invest in America. So if you've ever heard those phrases, those are how we are working to get the message across to people. But as your Democratic nominee, it will also be my job to ensure that message is being delivered, to ensure voters know that the Biden-Harris administration and Democrats are working for them and not against them. Thank you.
Thank you. How do you improve the Democrats' message?
Well, I would say that as I've been talking to thousands of voters, I keep hearing over and over and over again a common sentence. I just feel like I can't get a leg up. And that's a common thing that I'm hearing. And what it makes me feel is that we need to do a better job of communicating to people. And we also need to be doing a better job of making sure that we're delivering the services that are needed for people to be able to live healthy, prosperous, and safe lives. The Democrats over years have stumbled a bit in trying to communicate around this conversation around inflation. This is a cost of living crisis that we are in the middle of. And we need to do a better job of calling it as we see it and talking about how we're going to plan to address it. And so one of the things that I will do is hold corporates accountable for shrinkflation and other ways that they're cheating consumers by saving more money and putting it in their own pockets. I'm going to also work to make sure that we're giving more tax credits to the people who deserve it. One of the things that we have seen is that people are suffering right now, and we need to be thinking about ways that we can make people feel secure again. And that's what our job is letting people feel like we have their backs.
Thank you.
So I think part of the problem with the messaging is so many people think that whatever's going on in our country, it is only the president's responsibility. But we need to be talking about the dysfunction in Congress at the moment. And Anna Paulina Luna is the lead in the dysfunction in our Congress. I mean, this is one of the most least productive Congresses we've had in our lifetime. And she is part of the problem, constantly threatening to shut down the government, to defund the Army Corps of Engineers, not allowing any bills to pass. We need to make sure that is our messaging, that it's not just one person, it is all of our elected officials and how are we working together to get things done. As was mentioned, we are facing an affordability crisis. No matter what's going on with the economy or inflation, people are struggling. And I'm hearing that that's the number one issue I hear when I'm going door knocking, talking to the voters. And that is, of course, for many different reasons. It's these large corporations who have swept up thousands of single-family homes in Pinellas County, raised the rent by 300%, pricing people out of their neighborhoods and making it unaffordable to buy your first home. It's these corporations who are price gouging, making record profits. We need to be holding them accountable. And we also need to be looking at what can we do to help first-time home buyers with incentives, whether that's insurance rates or first-time home buyers making sure that they have down payment programs. There are many things that we can be doing to diversify our housing ADUs. So there are many options we have when it comes to affordable housing as well and all these other issues, but it's focusing on the issues themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Put it in the question again. Okay, the question is, Donald Trump said at his rally this week that no one eats bacon anymore because it's too expensive. He says the Biden economy is a disaster. Yet we have historically low unemployment, about 5 million new jobs are created every year under Biden. Inflation has subsided in recent months.
I got it. Okay, I got it. Thanks. Just want to make sure it's on topic. First, I'm going to go off topic just for a second. Sabrina, love that you're born here. Love that you live in the district. I've lived in the district for 35 years. I know, which I still do. I lost it. She's great. It's all good. But getting back to the issue, you know, one of the things I've done for the past 35 years, I was named Mentor of the Year last year in Pinellas County Schools. I've been with the kids. And one of the things that is not uncommon for whether you're 10 or 20 or 60 is when you don't understand and you're not getting the information you need, you get stressed out. Things go ahead and confuse you. And when I talk to the kids, and I'm not talking to you the same way, please, let's not go there. But I ask them, focus on something to be grateful for. Look at where you live. Look at the people that care about you. And then we can focus on the things that challenge you moving forward. But let's get a solid footing beneath us before we get started. Here's the solid footing for all of us. We are doing great. We are doing well, and individuals are suffering, individuals are having issues. But last month, the inflation number was a negative number. We anticipate at least one rate cut before September, which will be good for Democrats, good for Biden, good for us all. But these are things that had to be put in place, and we're still suffering from the COVID situation where they had to keep throwing money on the fire to keep the lights burning. And that's just the way it was. We are correcting for this, but it's not the first time Democrats have corrected for other mistakes. George Bush put 2 wars on a credit card and Obama had to pay this off. We're Democrats. We fix things. We'll find a way. We just need to take back Congress.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you much. This may be the toughest question of the night because I think it's nobody knows what the answer is. But let me ask you. Hamas terrorists brutally attacked Israel last October, killing more than 1,000 Israelis and taking hundreds of people hostage. Since then, Israel has fought back. By some accounts, it's killed nearly 40,000 people, many of them children, and flattened infrastructure, hospitals, homes, and businesses in the Gaza Strip. What do you think of the Biden administration's handling of the war in Gaza?
That is a tough question. So I'm an Arab American, My grandparents are immigrants. They came across from Syria when during the persecution of Christians during the Ottoman Empire. And I am an Arab American who believes in peace. And I will be the only Arab American in Congress who does speak on behalf of our ally, Israel, in Congress. The issue for me is actually quite personal, in addition to that history story. My best friend's family was abducted on October 7th. 5 of them. They found 2 of them dead. 10 days later, 2 were released, and 1 still 250 plus days later, still held hostage. It has been harrowing for me to watch them handle that, and then also the destruction that is taking place in Gaza as Israel is trying to protect themselves from Hamas. The Biden administration has done the best they could because it's not up to us to stop this conflict between Israel and Hamas. The weapons that we provide give Americans jobs, and we must stand by our allies every day. Thank you.
So my 2 little girls actually attend a Jewish preschool, and it was very eye-opening to me to see the effects of October 7th, which was absolutely awful, but through the Jewish community here in Pinellas County, and especially in our parent group text messages, worried about security and safety for our children at this Temple preschool. And also just talking about that this is something that they think about every day. And also the rise in anti-Semitism, which we must stand up against. Obviously, what happened on October 7th was horrible. And I feel for your best friend and her family, right? I mean, what we need to do is, like you said, stand by our ally in Israel. They have every right to defend themselves. We need to get the hostages back, and we need to bring Hamas to justice. But we need to do it in a way that is also providing humanitarian aid to the innocent civilian lives who are being affected. Thank you.
I appreciate Liz's connection. We all, those of us that know, my connection go back to when I was 16 and went to Israel to work on a kibbutz for the summer. And I got off the bus in the middle of nowhere with limited language skills, and across the field, a gentleman saw me and he starts, first thing he says is, "Welcome home." And it felt like home because Israel embraces, or at the time, embraced the dream of what it could be. And I appreciate Liz pointing out that Hamas is the enemy. Too often it gets left out of the equation. The Israelis are not at war with the Palestinians. A 2-state solution is the ultimate solution. We have to work towards that peacefully. The issue right now is bad leadership in Israel. Netanyahu is the Israeli version of Trump. He wants to marginalize the judiciary to protect himself. He made a deal with the devil, the far-right groups that go ahead and don't even serve the military, but they're out there preventing aid from going into Gaza. They're out there encroaching on Arab settlements. This has got to stop. So we need to preserve the dream. We need to protect ourselves. The Israelis have the right to protect themselves. We pointed out before, the aid we give them costs us some money, but those jobs are producing the equipment and the ammunition here. That money mostly stays in the country. We need to demonstrate we stand by our allies, not only in Israel, not only in Ukraine, but NATO has never been more at risk right now if we lose the presidency this time around. It is the most successful alliance in history of the world to prevent the spread of autocratic leaders and despots. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
I fully support how President Biden and Kamala Harris and the administration has gone through with this issue. You know, I was the senior advisor to the Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response. And so when the attacks happened on October 7th, I was in the briefing rooms. I was really able to see a whole other side to this situation that is at hand. And I condemn the attacks of Hamas, which does get left out a little too much. And what we need to remember is that an attack on one is an attack on all. So we have to support our allies abroad because it helps us defend democracy here in the country. However, we still have to hold our allies accountable. We are at a time where innocent lives are being put on the front line. We are at a time where we are seeing people not able to have the humanitarian aid they need. We are seeing people starve to death. And what we need to do is to ensure that we hold people like Netanyahu accountable, but also help hold ourselves accountable when it comes to this situation. And so for me, what we need to do is we need to make sure that we are providing funding to have more humanitarian aid, and we are pushing back on that, but also work with Israel to ensure we combat this issue and get Hamas out and put forward a two-state solution, because both Israelis and Palestinians deserve to live in healthy and safer communities, and it's going to be on us to ensure that that happens.
This next question goes to you. Summers are getting hotter. I didn't even wear a tie tonight. So forecasters say we're going to see a record number of named tropical storms this year. Sea levels have risen about 1 foot in the last 80 years. In the last 15 years, sea levels around 4 to 6 inches, with the trend accelerating. What could you do as a member of Congress to combat the problems? And what do you say to your constituents that don't believe that global warming is real?
I grew up on these beaches at Frenchie's, eating grouper sandwiches with my dad, listening to live music. I can't hear Hotel California and not think of my childhood on our beaches. But we all know that our beaches are in trouble. We are all understanding that climate change is real. And I would like to argue that this is an issue that is a bipartisan issue here in Pinellas County. I mean, we are a peninsula on a peninsula. We see it with a heavy rainstorm and with the increased storms. So I think back to when I was working at Visit St. Pete Clearwater, working with our local elected leaders. Back in 2018, when we had this terrible algae bloom, red tide algae. Some of you might remember, it lasted for months. And tourism plummeted. And that severely affected our local businesses and our local economy. UF did a report that said we lost here in Pinellas County $184 million because of that red tide outbreak. We cannot afford elected leaders who do not believe in climate change, especially here in Pinellas County. Yes. And that is why, while working at PSTA, I worked with our state and federal government and received grants back to Pinellas County for us to buy our first electric buses, to create our electric fleet, to buy the infrastructure and build the infrastructure needed to charge our electric vehicles. That is a huge priority for me, is making sure that we are coming up with new ideas for renewable energy. We can't just be siloed in one or two sources of energy. We must diversify the way that we are getting our energy and making sure that that's a priority, especially here in Florida, because we have the ability to do so. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
And once again, the question was global warming, how do we work with people that deny it? Okay.
And what would you do as a member of Congress?
Thank you. Go ahead and do it. Awareness is the thing. Denial is the enemy. You know, we've all grown up and seen things change. And I've been around a little longer than some of you in the room, some of the people on the stage here. But I can still remember back when I first watched The Graduate, and there was a famous line in there, one word, planetary. And we all thought it was a wonderful thing. But look right at us here right now. We're saving the planet as best we can, but we've damaged it. And we need to be aware, we need to be conscious, and we have to fight ignorance wherever we can, to get people on board. Once the water can't be pumped out anymore because sea level rise has been too much, it's too late. We have to fight fervently and strongly now to go ahead and get some of these initiatives passed, because we keep hearing about the tipping point, and if we haven't passed it already, it sure is looming large on the horizon. What do I leave to my children? What do I leave to my grandchild when the time comes? If there's water that can't be drunk, if it's not safe to flush the toilets because it comes back in the other direction, we need to go ahead and take action now, and that's what Congress needs to do. We have to get out of Florida mentality, and that's why at the federal level you can enact these things, because in the State House, you can't use the language of climate change or global warming. Believe me, I've seen the glaciers disappear as I've flown over Alaska and Greenland. Climate change is with us, and it's very pronounced. Thank you.
Thank you.
The climate crisis is not coming, it's here. We just had our first hurricane make landfall to the United States so early into the season. I started my public service as a huge volunteer at Clearwater Marine Aquarium, which inspired me to get involved in government because I realized they were making decisions on our behalf, on our future, on our beaches, and on our environment. I am proud to have been endorsed by the Democratic Environmental Caucus of Florida, and I'm proud to have served in the administration where we got the Inflation Reduction Act, the most pro-climate legislation ever passed. I also worked with FEMA on the natural disasters and everything we are seeing today, and it is so real. But my issue with Congress, and something that I learned when I got my master's in emergency management and natural disasters, is that we put too much money into the response rather into resiliency and mitigation. And what does that mean? That means investing in our infrastructure. That means investing in public education. That means investing to ensure that our insurance is affordable. There are so many things we can do to prosper and address the issues that are happening now that we're not. And instead, Anna Paulina Luna wants to dismantle the EPA. Wants to cut $300,000 of funding that has come to this district. Well, I promise you this, when I'm in Congress, this is the first thing that I'm going to make sure we get to work on because this is impacting our district.
Okay, thank you.
I grew up along Florida's beaches and mangroves, and I have seen how the environment is changing. I'm a birder, and I've seen how even the patterns of their travels have changed. Florida has so much to lose because of climate change, but we also have an opportunity to lead. And it blows my mind that we don't have more renewable energy across our district, 361 days of sun a year, and it's now cheaper than ever to be able to install it and to be able to derive the energy from that technology. We need leaders in Congress who will bring resources back to this district to make sure that we can lower energy costs and deliver for the people of Pinellas County. I'll also say, I mentioned how I turned no's into yeses in my introduction. Twice, I can tell you 2 stories of how I changed the minds of CEOs on how they thought about the energy transition. One of them was an industrial gases company who laughed in my face when I told him that climate change was going to force him to change his business. 5 years later, they're the largest investor in green hydrogen in the world. Why? Because I made the case and I convinced him to do that. I've also convinced insurance companies to change their own policies about how they think about coal and tar sands. We can get insurers to get religion on this topic, and I am the person who can do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So the first question written by the audience is, and this goes to Mark. Mark, what does being accountable mean to you? And how would you make sure that the folks you represent know that you will be accountable to them?
That's a great question, Representative. Thanks so much. You know, being accountable means showing up and being in the moment. And for over 30 years, and this is just, you know, one of the exhibits of the way I've done it, I've been mentoring in the schools. I left this last year with 12 kids that I'm there for every week because it was commitment to them to be present. For children that had no hope, no understanding, and no expectation that anybody cared about them. I had to be there. And I'll be honest, it impacted some of my fundraising early on in the campaign because the prime times to call, I was working 14, 16 hours a week in the schools with these children, and I couldn't walk away. I've been president at the fire commission meetings when I've been at county commission meetings. I've been invested and involved in this community for over 3 decades. And years ago, one of our former Republican county commissioners was asked when somebody was saying, should we put Winekrantz on our board? And this Republican said, Winekrantz can be a pain in the butt, but he gets things done. I show up and I get things done. And I got put on that board, and we did get some things done. And whether it's with the arts councils or with the education foundation, or as a fire commissioner, with the YMCA, we got things done because I listened to people. For instance, real quick, I got them to change the policy on allowing same-sex couples to be admitted to the YMCA as a family discount. Because everyone in this room, thank you. You listen to the voices, you are present, and you do the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Accountability matters. When President Donald Trump was elected in 2016, I remember we allowed mis and disinformation to really get into our politics and our government and our education. And for me, it was important that we get people elected who are going to be held accountable. What accountability means to me is transparency, is communication, is ethics, is ensuring that when you serve this country, you are held accountable to the American people who got you there. And that is what we're missing in our elected officials like Anna Paulina Luna. She does not answer calls. She doesn't answer emails. If you ask Republicans about this issue, they will tell you they have tried to get answers from her and it has never gotten through. What we need is someone who's going to always be held accountable. And something that I've talked about a lot is we need to bring back town halls. We need to bring back Q&A moments, right? And as your congresswoman, I would do that. Our job is not just to go to DC, but it's coming back to this district, telling you what we're working on, and you holding me accountable for the votes that I am voting on. Right now, our congresswoman is not even really voting. The number one job that you're supposed to do as an elected official. And so for me, I will go to DC, I will listen to every concern you have, I will listen to Republicans, Democrats, and independents, and make sure that we meet in the middle to actually move forward as a country.
Thank you.
So when I was working with Tom Daschle, who was the Democratic leader of the Senate, I learned what real constituent services look like. He would spend hours a day going through responses that people from across his state could be the responses that his staff would draft in response to questions from people from his state. I saw how important that was when I went to South Dakota on his behalf and I interacted with voters in 2004. I understand what it means to listen to stakeholders. I'm a stakeholder engagement expert. I understand how to listen to different points of view. My mother was a Republican. I understand the Republican point of view. I understand the Democratic point of view. This district has one of the largest populations of independents and no party affiliation. I've been talking to them too. Your representatives need to talk to everyone. They need to advocate for the best interests of the district, and we need to be in constant communication. There are new tools that are available since the time that I was with Tom in South Dakota in 2004. We have so many new tools. Let's bring them together. Let's use them to make sure that we're hearing from everyone, and I will deliver for you. Thank you.
I think when we think of the word accountability, Anna Paulina Luna is not the first thing that comes to mind. Right? It's been oh, thank you. Can you hear me now? How's that better? There's some music going on, yeah. I think it's very important that we acknowledge the fact that there are more registered Republicans than Democrats here in this district. And a third of the voters are independents. And it's going to be important for whoever's in office to make sure that everyone is holding them accountable. And to what's already been said is we have to make sure that we are listening to the constituents and meeting with them. I've had so many people reach out to our campaign and say, Whitney, I can't get in touch with Luna. She doesn't return my calls. When I sit down to talk with our elected leaders who are Republican, who I have relationships with already, and say, how's it been working with Luna? What has been good? What has been bad? They shrug their shoulders and they say, I barely talked to the woman. She doesn't answer our calls. Her staff doesn't return our calls. We can't get projects moved forward. And that's what I've seen working in public transportation for Pinellas County. When we all work together, Democrats and Republicans at every level of government, that's when the projects come home. That's when we get the largest public transit federal grant we've ever received for our first bus rapid transit system. And I promise that every quarter I will be here holding a town hall to listen to the constituents, for you to hold me accountable, because that's what we deserve. And that, you can't hear me? Still? No? Can't hear me? Is that better? Okay. Oh, much better. There we go. Let me start over. No, I'm just kidding. So when it comes to accountability, one thing I want to mention is I live here. This is my home after this election. I'm not going anywhere. This is not just a notch on my belt or bump on my resume. This is my community. This is our community. And we need to hold ourselves accountable to have representation who understands this community as well.
Okay, Whitney, thanks a lot. I think we fixed it. So the next question is from the audience and this goes to Sabrina. Have you openly supported the LGBTQ community, and if so, how?
Yes, I have. Starting out in my career, I interned for the DNC and then was a staffer and then got involved in Democratic politics ever since then. And I have always been an advocate for the LGBTQ plus community. When I was in high school here at Osceola, one of my best friends came out to me and I told her, I was like, oh, that's great. Like, gave her a hug. And she got so shocked. She said, I thought you would not be happy for me. And I said, what do you mean? And she goes, I've gotten so many hate from my family and my other friends. I wasn't sure what was gonna happen. And for me, I remember in that moment, I told her, that should never happen to you. And the fact that government is now being a part of this, attacking our LGBTQ plus community, and really, it goes on and on about the issues happening here in our home state, in my home. And what we need to do is we need to have elected officials who are going to support the LGBTQ community no matter what. Because at the end of the day, love is love. Period. And some things that I have done, I've worked with, we have the Trans Network Alliance here. We also have the LGBTQ caucus. We have, it's across the state that in the nation that I've done it. And so for me, it's continuing to be involved and continuing to ensure that we protect their rights. Thank you.
For the last 10 years, I was working at a firm called Brunswick Group. And one of the initiatives that we started was this program called Open for Business. And what it did was it helped to quantify the economic impact that the LGBTQIA community made on the different areas where there were very restrictive LGBTQ policies. In Uganda, in Thailand, in other parts of South America, we were able to actually help change the way that governments were treating these people in their communities. And that was one of the best things that I've ever been able to do. I've talked to folks here in Florida who've told me that they are thinking that they might leave the state because of the restrictive policies and the way that they feel and they're made to feel uncomfortable. I want to make sure that everyone feels accepted and can live healthy and prosperous lives here in America. I also believe in diverse teams, and I reflect that view in the way that I built my campaign. I have team members who are members of the community, and I think that that's really important because that perspective helps me be a better leader, a better advisor, and a better friend. Thank you.
I've been a very proud ally to the LGBTQ plus community, especially here, right here, actually in Pinellas County. I really enjoyed this past June walking in the St. Pete Pride Parade for the 6th time. It was surreal doing it as a candidate. I also, of course, working at Visit St. Pete Clearwater and also PSTA have supported the community. We wrapped a bus every year for the Pride Parade that we let run throughout the community all year long. And that was something we held as a point of pride for ourselves to make sure people felt seen and heard. And one thing, I had a conversation recently with a woman at a St. Pete Pride Family Day, and I asked her, I said, what's the most important issue to you this election year? And she looked at her children and looked at me and said, Whitney, I just want my kids to be able to go to school and to be able to say they have two moms. And I thought about the fact that the other day, my 4-year-old said to me, Mommy, why does my friend have two daddies? And we sat down and we talked about how all families look different. And you know what her response to me was? Okay. And that was it. It starts with educating our children. They are the next generation and they will grow up to be accepting adults of these differences. The attack on the LGBTQ plus community here in Florida is appalling. And I'm tired of hearing my friends, people in my community who are saying, Whitney, I don't feel safe, I'm leaving the state. We need representatives who will stand by our LGBTQ community as an ally and not be afraid to speak up for them. Thank you.
There's an aspiration as to what I'll do, and then there's a story about what I've done. Let's talk about what I've done. Well, I did receive support from the Stonewall Democrats at my last election cycle. That's one thing. We talked about how I go ahead and I change the rules of the YMCA. But let me tell you, in the time I've worked with the kids again, I've had 6 of them come out to me because they didn't feel safe at home. And this is one of the reasons that Harvey Milk is such a hero to me, because he tell the people that love you who you are. They're still gonna love you. And this one young kid that came up, he was 12 years old. I've been with him since the 2nd grade. He said, Mr. Mark, when I grow up, I think I'm gonna be gay. And I go, okay, I mean, you tell me that to shock me, because I'm not. And I said, here's 2 truths. Number 1, when the time comes, you're not gonna think you're gonna know who you love and who you're attracted to. And item B, whoever gets to love you and you get to love in return will be incredibly lucky. And that's the love. That is who I am, and that is what I've done. And when the time came when they were taking books off the shelf at Palm Harbor Library, I went up against one of the strongest Republican senators in the state, and I told him he was wrong. And for 45 minutes, he listened as I told him why I was wrong. He said those books were croup kids. I say, absolutely not. Those books save lives. And it is incumbent on each and every one of us to embrace everyone in the community with equal rights and the equal opportunity to love the ones they choose. Thank you.
So, Liz Dan, the next question is for you. What can and will you do with the lack of ethics and partisan power grab that the Supreme Court has undertaken during the Roberts Court years? How can we overturn the immunity decision that gives Trump unlimited powers with the help of the court?
So, yes, if you don't listen to Strict Scrutiny, you must. It is one of the best podcasts, and I am obsessed with it. And so I feel like I could go on way past 90 seconds to this question. You know, the suggestion of the size of our court that's what it is. We could expand it. There's nothing that prevents us from doing it. The fact that we don't have term limits is also a suggestion. We could address that as well. And I would want to look at both of those options when I'm in Congress. In my mind, I think I like term limits better, because I think there is a role for the executive branch to play in setting up its court. I think what Mitch McConnell did to Merrick Garland was awful. And I think that is something that ooh, if I could ever be alone with him. But, you know, so my point is, though, it's the president's prerogative to name their Supreme Court. I think that there are times where there are generational shifts, and we need to be able to say, thank you for your service, move on. And I think that that's what we need to be able to do with our courts. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Well, I think first and, you guys can hear me? First and foremost, we need to be looking at the ethics in Supreme Court. I mean, it's very sad and quite scary for our democracy that we are losing our faith in our institutions like the Supreme Court. But I think the ethics part of it is the number one issue that needs to be looked at. I mean, we have current Supreme Court justices who have people who are taking cases before them who are going on lavish vacations, who are getting a lot of money for paying for their grandchildren's schooling, who are giving these lavish gifts. I mean, that has to stop first and foremost. And I think that is a bipartisan agreement that most people will agree that we have to get corruption out of the Supreme Court. Yes, you can applaud that, that's right. And, you know, obviously we have the situation where we have this pull and tug of different presidents who can, for example, most recently, put in 3 justices. That's going to affect the rest of our lives and probably my children's lives. So we need to look at what adjustments can be made. I think there's a lot of different options, and I'm very excited to be in Congress to talk to the right people to say, what are we going to do about the situation? Because we are losing our trust and losing our support for our institutions, especially the Supreme Court at the moment. Thank you.
You know, the symbol of the Democratic Party is the donkey, right? We all know that. And as we're all donkeys, we all bear burdens all the time without complaining. But it gets to a point where the donkey has to kick. And the Supreme Court is one of those situations. Merrick Garland should be moving on articles against a couple of them, Alito and Thomas, yesterday. AOC, don't always agree with her, but good for her. Good for her. And at least drawing attention to these issues. Oh, I need to go ahead and do that too? Oh, thank you. Anyway, but here what we got is, we have lost the impact of shame on our elected and appointed officials. They don't get it anymore and they don't care. And while the Republicans have knocked down, and under Trump, they're trying to go ahead and kill all the institutions, somehow he holds the Supreme Court sacrosanct because they're keeping him out of jail. How do we change it? You change the laws and you make it black and white as a member of Congress so they have no gray area. They've got no wiggle room. This is the law, just like Roe v. Wade. It's codified. This is the law of the land. And we can go ahead and move against an activist Supreme Court and take control of this. We've got to get the Congress back. We've got to have the ability to be the donkeys that kick. I've got that history, I've got that record, and I've got the scars to prove that I've been in the fights before. Thank you.
We need to put everything on the table when it comes to holding the Supreme Court justices accountable. When we saw what happened with Roe v. Wade, we knew that this was going to be the first of many other problems, right? And now we're living it. We're seeing it. Look at everything that has happened in the past 2 weeks. We now have a president who's pretty much a former president who can become a president that will eventually be like a king when you think about it and will abuse his power. And so for me, what we need to do is we need to look at expanding the court. We need to look at putting term limits. We need to look at ethics reviews. We need to look at all of it. Because your Supreme Court justices are also not above the law. We are all held accountable no matter what. And for me, what we have to do in Congress is we have to push this forward. We have to hold them accountable. We have to get everything that I just mentioned through the door. But we also need to call out how corrupt they have become. That they are bought out and they are doing anything for themselves and for the people who are paying them. And that's the problem here, is your elected officials, your justices are being bought out. And I will take on corporate greed and I will make sure that we never have this happen again, because this is America. This is freedom. This is democracy that we're fighting for. And when you talk to young people, this November is about the Supreme Court. We have to fight like hell this November because they're going to take away our rights to freedom.
So, so Mark, I think Whitney's onto something when she pulls off her mic and talks directly to it. I think everybody can hear better. So you guys might want to use that tactic. I think Whitney's onto something. Mark, this is a really important question. We're down to the last two. What do you propose to do to help homeowners make their homes climate resilient?
You know, we've had incentives before, and this goes to, as Sabrina pointed out, it's here right now, Brett's here, now we're playing catch up. And to go ahead and make things more resilient, low income, low interest loans can help. I've got my hurricane shutters, I've got solar power, but I'm in a rare situation where I can go ahead and pay for them out of pocket, and I have gratitude for that. Other people need help, and mitigation is, as Sabrina offered earlier, for every dollar spent up front, we save $6 going forward. There are some things that we can't help. If you're in a flood zone, sometimes it's just going to be difficult. And even with a heavy rainstorm, we're seeing things here. But for hurricanes and winds, the county has done a great job. Charlie, you're still here? With mitigation, and they've gone ahead, they've cleared things, they made the drains work better, putting up better power poles to ensure the electrical grid. This ain't Houston. And it ain't Houston because we've had great leadership at the local level. They're still without power. 500,000 people, 6 days later in Houston in the sweltering heat. So we are getting ahead of it as best we can. We have good leadership locally. Whatever the federal government could do to subsidize people to improve the durability and sustainability and survivability of their homes is totally worthwhile. But we're facing other issues too. Imagine trying to evacuate Pinellas County right now on short notice to get everybody out of here in a real hurricane threat. You have to leave 5 days early to get out of here. And if you've got an electric car, you may be at a disadvantage because there may not be a charging station for you. So increasing the government's role with meteorology, better forecasting, and doing everything we can to protect the communities financially.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Sabrina?
During my work in the administration, this is something we actually addressed a lot. So I worked at ASPR, and then we had FEMA, of course, as you all know, we have the EPA, but we also worked with HUD, which is our Agency of Housing and Urban Development, as well as small business administrations. And what we forget a lot when it comes to this topic is that if you own a small business on the waters, you might not be able to get insurance coverage. And that's because of the risks that we are at. We are seeing insurance companies leave the state because of how expensive and how expensive it has gotten and how we're going to have more disasters that are going to happen. And so when it comes to bringing the prices down, especially when it comes to our homes, I immediately think of insurance. But as I mentioned, I talked about mitigation, right? And Mark just mentioned a bunch of it. When it comes to building your roofs, when it comes to building new property, when it comes to building up, how are we ensuring that it is the right materials so that when a future hurricane comes, we can withstand and withhold? But one of the other biggest lessons I learned when I got my master's degree in this is how do we help the vulnerable communities? We have so many people who might not even have a car. We have so many people who might not even have technology. Think about your rural communities. We have so many people who could suffer from the future of disasters, and we have to ensure that our federal government is more proactive rather than reactive. Thank you. Sorry, I got asked about the mic.
Can you repeat the question for me, please?
Sure, the question is, what do you propose to do to help homeowners make their homes more climate resilient?
Yes. So, one of the things that I know that insurance companies are doing is that they're trying to educate homeowners about some improvements that they could make on their homes so that they could continue to maintain coverage. In this case, insurance companies are putting the onus on the person to fix the problem that the insurance company is afraid of. I think there's got to be a solution in the middle of that. And so one of the things that I would propose is that we do talk about how the government can provide tax incentives for making homes more resilient to hurricanes, but also in California more resilient against forest fires. I mean, every single state is facing different issues related to the extreme weather that we are facing. And we need a holistic solution that thinks about all Americans and all Americans' houses, so that they're able to live healthy, prosperous lives. Thank you.
Well, one thing that my husband and I, as we are able-bodied, we do every hurricane season is help our neighbors to put up their shutters. We have a lot of senior citizens here in Pinellas. So first and foremost, I think that's something we should all take on if we're able to, is to help our neighbors prepare for any storm. But when it comes to a congressional level, you know, there are a few different levers that we can pull at a federal level. A lot of people will say, I talk about home insurance and people say, oh, that's an issue that needs to be addressed at a state level. I'm not taking that as an answer, because if you are an elected official or running for office and you're not talking about home insurance in Florida, you're not listening to the constituents. So there are different things that we can do. Number one, I think that we need to be looking at a national natural disaster program. We already have something like this in place, that is our national flood insurance. And Florida, the home insurance crisis used to be just us a few years ago. Not the case anymore. We're seeing it out west with wildfires, in the Midwest with rain or hailstorms and windstorms. Home insurance is going up exponentially for people across the country. We need to address it. Second thing is, we do have a program here in Florida already where that incentivizes people to upgrade their homes, but it's not enough. I hear from so many people that say it's too difficult to get it, or they don't have access to it. We need more incentives for upgrades to our homes. And I think there are levers that we can pull at a federal level to do so. And yes, the county, our local electeds, has been doing such a great job with infrastructure as well when it comes to flooding. But they need more. The meetings I'm having with city council members and mayors here throughout the district is we need more federal funding for infrastructure.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm proposing to do in the last round,
Yeah, go ahead.
so I skipped. So I'm going to give you the last question. And it's another really important one. So how would you make housing more affordable for low and moderate income people, especially young people and people of color, who are finding that this is a really tough housing market and many workers can't afford to live at the rates that they charge for rent?
Absolutely. So my own mother, who worked as a single mom and a nurse her entire life, recently bought her first home, a quaint 2-bedroom condo. She's very proud of it. But as she gets close to retiring, she's worried if she'll be able to afford to live there. And this is something I'm hearing from people throughout the district, especially our senior citizens who are on fixed incomes as housing costs continue to rise. There are people who can't buy their first homes, which is the American dream and the best way to build generational wealth. So there's many different options we can do here. I touched on this earlier. We can provide better incentives for first-time home buyers with lower interest rates. We can, of course, look at different, unique, diverse, better options for affordable housing, such as ADUs, which is something that's happening in St. Petersburg and going quite well. There also, we need to hold these corporations accountable. How many of you get those phone calls or letters in the mail? Are you selling your home? We'd like to buy your home. Yes, constantly. It's predatory, especially to our colors or to our communities of color. So we need to make sure that we are stopping these corporations who are coming in and buying single-family homes by the thousands here in Tampa Bay, which Tampa Bay Times just reported on this recently, raising the rent by 300%, taking supply off the market and pushing people out of their neighborhoods that they grew up and out of their homes. This is a huge problem that I'm hearing from voters when I'm talking to them door to door. It needs to be addressed. And guess what? Anna Paulina Luna is not looking into this in any capacity. She's more focused on UFOs or other issues than she is about affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you.
The corporate buyout of available housing is one of the issues. So is gentrification. When somebody buys a house in a community, knocks down a couple others, and puts up a more expensive house, it goes ahead and raises the taxes and the assessed value for everything else in the community, which makes it more difficult for people to afford things. Can we rein that in? Possibly. If we go ahead, the cities and the county go ahead and limit how you can go ahead and move people out of their homes and build up in their community. The other part of it is there are solutions proposed that President Biden has made. They seem pretty simple. The idea of giving a $5,000 a year tax credit, which equates to about 1.5% in interest rates that can help people with first-time homeowners. We've always had the VA, which gives you about a point off the cost of a house on your interest rates. When I got my first house, it was under Reagan, and my VA rate was 13.5%. I know, it's not something. So now we're coming down to 6%, and we're complaining. It is the reality, though. If it's not affordable, it's not affordable. And what we need to make completely clear and focus on is that wealth is the wealth that gets passed on to generations. And to prohibit people from being able to invest in a home and have that own ownership and pass that down to their children is going ahead and giving us a permanent subclass. We're better than that. There need to be solutions. And And what we first step is to invite him back to Congress.
So about 2 years ago, I get a call from my dad. He's like, Sabrina, it's time to look at buying property. And I go, okay, great. Yeah, that's exciting. How much am I going to need? He goes, $150,000 minimum. And I said, what? $150,000 as I'm paying for my education to get a higher ed degree? $100,000 as my salary doesn't match that? Gen Z and millennials, there are many statistics behind this, where literally our salaries do not match the housing market anymore. And so it is 10 times more difficult to buy property than it was back in the days. And this is something that we have to address head on. As a young woman of color, this is something I see every single day, and we need to ensure that it is being addressed. Now, what do? We have to work with the Housing and Urban Development Administration. We have to ensure that they are receiving the investments and the grants and programs necessary. Because I talked to a friend of mine who was a senior policy advisor there, and she said, Sabrina, there are so many great programs out there that one, people just don't really know about, or two, doesn't get enough funding. And that funding would help bring those prices down, keep communities back in their hometown, not drive people like me out who wants to live and be in my home. And it is so important that we work along with President Biden and all of the initiatives he has pushed forward to rein in the costs of rent and mortgage, to ensure that insurance isn't taken out of your pocket, and make sure that people can afford the life they want to live.
The Tampa Bay region has one of the highest wage to rent discrepancies in the country. And one of the facts that really scares me is that 7 in 10 people are a $400 away shock to their income that would actually force them to make a really difficult decision about whether or not they can stay in their house or not. The number one cause of homelessness isn't mental illness or drug use, which is one of the stories that people like to tell. It's actually lack of renter protections. So when I think about what I would do, one of the things that I would advocate for is for rational policies that enable people to stay in their homes when disaster strikes. And I'm not talking about a hurricane, I'm talking about a car accident or a hospital bill or any other thing that could cost more than $400. So that's where I would go first. The second thing I want to tell you is that the insurance crisis is real. I talked to a woman, Stephanie, in Dunedin. She told me that her mortgage insurance used to be $1,200 a year. Now it's $1,200 a month. It's forced her to try to think about, how am I saving for retirement or for my child's education? We really need to get this under control, and that's the other thing that I'm going to focus on. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Barbara, and then Whitney, and then Liz, and then Sabrina. So, Barbara, closing statement.
Well, first off, thanks for everyone coming out this evening. Thanks to my fellow candidates. You got some great choices here. Let me just circle back because I have 2 minutes. We talked about aspirational versus historical as well, and we talked about how to deal with the storms. I created the first in the county community emergency response team that was run independently, where we trained individuals in the community to go ahead and take care of themselves in an emergency situation. Everything from stocking up, preparing their homes, mitigation, to driving forklifts when they open the pods for the community. So real action that made a real difference in the community. Now we'll close. You have several choices here. But we do know August 21st, there's one thing for certain. You can write this down. MAGA does not work on policy. MAGA works on hate, ignorance, and attacks on personality. Let's not give them any low-hanging fruit. It's time to go ahead and take a look, check into who you can vote for, find out if there's anything going on that you need to know about, find out if they live in the district, find out if there are any skeletons in the closet. This is the responsibility of voters, and it's the responsibility of the party to go ahead and tell us everything there is to know about these candidates. My history is out there. I've been around a long time. My history is known. I've taken some shots before, and my reputation on the other side is Mark has got thick skin and sharp elbows, and I'm here to use them both for the Democrats moving forward, which is why I'm the one that can stand up to Luna. I'm the only one that's a veteran. I'm the only one that's held elected office. I've been in this district 35 years and created things. I have fixed issues, and when there are issues that need to be solved, I'm the one that gets the phone call to put people together. One of the truisms in this room and everywhere else in this county, the people that do stuff know the other people that do stuff. And through that network, we can get stuff done, like getting rid of Anapolina Luna. Thank you.
Bobby?
Oh, me? Oh, sorry.
No, Whitney.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Whitney next to Liz Kitchen.
No, Liz, you go. Sorry. Okay. I think we can all agree that we would be much better off with any one of us here on this stage instead of Anapolina Luna. Listen, when it comes to this race, it really is about experience. Who has experience working here in the district and understands the issues that we're facing in an intimate way and has the support of our community and they're standing behind them. I'm so grateful for our elected leaders because that trust me, whether that's County Commissioner Renee Flowers, school board members Caprice Edmond and Eileen Long, who you need to vote for this August, and over 50 local elected leaders because they've worked with me, they know me, and they trust me. And that's what it's going to take to defeat Anapolina Luna. And like I mentioned earlier, not just support here in the district, but also throughout the state. Congresswoman Kathy Castor has been a mentor to me. We had lunch together before I decided to run and asked for her guidance, and she continues to mentor me still. And not only the 7 members of Congress who have supported my campaign, but also the PAC's National Organization of Women has endorsed me. And it's going to take a lot of resources to win this race. I'm proud to say I'm the only person on this stage that has out-fundraised Anapolina Luna the last 2 quarters. And we'll find out Monday if I'll be out-raising her again this quarter, fingers crossed. But I've been kicking Anapolina Luna's ass since I entered this race, and I'm going to kick her ass out of office this November.
Madeleine Albright used to say that democracy has to deliver. And I think we all can agree that in some ways, democracy hasn't really been delivering. So when I think about what my enemy is in this race, it's apathy. It's the sense that no matter what I do, nothing is going to change. That my vote doesn't matter, that my voice doesn't matter, that the system is rigged and I can't change it. I'm running for Congress because I believe in this democracy. I believe in this incredible experiment that we all get to participate in. And what I want to do is inspire people to connect back to the thing that makes us Americans. That's what I want to do. That's why I'm here. I believe in us. I believe that Pinellas County deserves a representative who knows what she's doing, who has the experience that's needed, because these are very serious times. Project 2025 is set up to dismantle the quote-unquote administrative state. There is a plan to upend everything that we have and that we stand for. We need a Speaker Jeffries. We need to flip this seat. We need a candidate that can stand next to Anapolina Luna and make her look like a little girl. And I can do that. So, support democracy, choose democracy, choose me. Thank you.
Thank you to the Democratic Party for hosting us tonight. Thank you to Rob for moderating us as well. Thank you to my friends, my family, my staff, my supporters, and everyone who has been here through this journey with me today. My parents came to this country and they taught me the beauty of America, democracy. And I am always reminded that I am living my ancestors' wildest dreams. And what we have here tonight is democracy at its best. You, the voters of Pinellas County, now get to choose not only who you want to see defeat Anna Paulina Luna, but who you want to see representing you in Congress. I am tired of the ineffectiveness and the extremism of Republicans like Luna. I am the only candidate who was born and raised in this district, has teachers here with us tonight because they heard of my race. I am the only candidate who worked in today's federal government and understands the unique issues we are going through as a country. And I am the only candidate who understands emergency management and natural disasters because of the education and work that I have done. We are at a time in this country where we need to fight for all of us. We have had Republicans and independents and MPAs register to Democrats so I can be the nominee. And some of them are here with us tonight. Because this is a fight about all of us. This is a fight about 4 to 13. This is a fight about our future. My name is Sabrina Busbar, and as Vote by Mail ballots go out this week, I hope I can earn your trust and support the same way President Biden trusted and supported me to serve in the administration. Thank you.
So thank you, panelists, for really uplifting discussion, quality discussion. I learned a lot, and I think the county would be well served, the district would be well served by anyone. So let's give our panelists, let's give our candidates.
You have been watching the Congressional District 13 Democratic Primary Debate.